jumping right over into Florida this time, which we got a really good look at Florida. They played on prime time, first big game of the year. What you think about Florida?
Yeah, Florida, they bring a lot of different looks, and, they recruit well. Mullen, head coach Dan Mullen, what is he in his third year or second year? I'm sorry, second year. Last year was his first year, and he took a big. They took big strides. A lot of suppliers, a lot of people with how they got Felipe Franks to perform now. That tough game they played at Miami. That was a bruiser type of game. The defense played solid. They went after the quarterback. Offensively speaking, they did make some mistakes last week. Excuse me. They had some miscues on offense, and I guess they're going to work through those. But they take on they play Tennessee Martin, so that's a real soft game for them this week coming up. But schedule wise, they're looking at Tennessee and then Auburn or then Townsend State, which is another softie, and then Auburn. So they got a very favorable schedule too till they get to the middle part of the schedule, like late mid-October forward. Then going forward. That's why the East always has tough against the West, because the East drops off pretty quick. We talked about that too, how some of these conferences at the top are real thin, and then they get real weak towards the bottom. And not that you hear a lot about the SEC and the toughest conference in all of football, but I'm not gonna boast for the SEC. I'm gonna say they do play tough teams. They do have tough teams overall, but through and through, I don't think they're the toughest conference. I'm going to go on record saying that, okay? All right, so now the Gators do have a lot of weapons, though. I mean, they're loaded at wideouts. Junior Kadarius Towney is a heck of a player. Van Johnson, speedy guy. Trayvon Grimes, junior. Then look at the running back position, Lamico Perrine, he's just under 1,000-yard rusher last year. He's going to have a solid season. And then the O-line has a lot of gaps to fill. That's probably going to be their weakest point. And I think that showed up in the last game against Miami last week. They did have some struggles there. And this offense, they ranked 5th last year in the SEC as a whole. But, they do score points, and Dan Mullen is the contributor factor there in his style of offense. Now, defensively, this team was ranked number 1 in the turnover bracket. So they got some ball hawkers on the squad. So they're not ranked number 1 overall, but on the turnover margin, they were ranked number 1. Okay, and they're running a new aggressive 3-4, and they have 7 starters coming back, and they look like they're loaded with reserves too. So I look for a lot of good key players for the Gators. Some tough off battles, even though, like I say, they start out, with the Miami, which was a tough game to kind of set them up to get to Auburn, because Tennessee's going to be down. Townsend State's not a big deal. So probably their toughest game coming up is going to be Kentucky, in September 14th, a week from this coming week. And then they go down and they got to play Auburn in October. So that being said, Mullen in his second year out, and Mullins is the third coach in FBS history to take a Power 5 team and win 10 games and won less than 5 games the prior year. So he's only the third coach to ever do that, to win 10 games after only winning less than 5 games. There's only been 3 other coaches. I mean, he's the third coach to ever do that. So kudos to Mullen. I like the way he coaches. He's a talented coach, and look for the Gators to get on the improve this year moving forward. What do you think?
Absolutely. Well, I say I'm going to have an interesting view on this one, and I think that there were a lot of things that were questionable for Florida. Like if we would have did this preview prior to this first game, we would have been looking at the question marks at quarterback, if that was going to work out for them. We knew they were coming with some wide receivers. We would have had questions at the offensive line position. We definitely always got questions on defense. There would have been a lot of questions that we could have lingered and talked on. But after reviewing the first game, we got all those questions out in one game. And one thing I must say about this Florida, I got to commend them a little bit. Even though I think overall Miami played a better game, But I think Miami just haven't developed enough on offense to win that game. But Florida definitely came out first, strong as they should. They met with a little bit of adversity. They adjusted, but they made a lot of mistakes in the game. It looked like a really bad game as far as like the turnovers and some of the stuff that happened. But if you look at that from a coaching standpoint, then you're looking at we got all of our stuff out. You know, we got that, you know, that worried about interception. We did that. We were able to, you know, rehearse that. We were able to lock over not doing that down. So I think at the end of the day, Florida got a lot accomplished with that game and squeaked away with the win. So that was really, really good for Florida. And I'm like you. I'm up on Florida. They lost 3 games last year. Maybe they lose 2 this year, bring it down a little bit. You know, if they get in the scene against Alabama, though, it's not going to be nothing nice against Alabama because, and reason being is because in the first game, they also show you that they could struggle passing and, you know, that they could struggle on defense. And, you know, they showed that they have some weak points. But being that it's the beginning of the season for them on their organization side, it gives them time to start working on some of their mistakes. They got another little easy game that they could polish it up some more. They got a couple other games that it could be tested and polished up some more. And by the time they reach Auburn, the game that they need, they'll probably look like a whole different squad than we seen that first game. And that was in a victory. So all for the Gators right here. Not one of my favorite college teams, but hey.
Me neither. They're right up the street from where I'm at. I mean, they got to play Auburn, like you said, and then that's going to be a tough spot. And then right after that, they got to face a dynamite LSU team. So 2 tough games back to back. You know, if they come out of that Auburn game unscathed, then they got to take on LSU like right away, and that's at LSU. And if that's a night game, I don't know if I'm sure you've watched those type of games where LSU is a real tough place to play at nighttime. Death Valley and under the lights, that's a real tough look for them. So mainly their whole season hinges upon, you know, playing LSU. I mean, talking about getting into the big spotlight. They got to beat an LSU team, and they got to beat Georgia at the biggest cocktail party up in Jacksonville, where they play every year, like the first week in November. Those are the 2 key games for them to maintain them in the national spotlight.
That's what's up, man. I think we did more than a mouthful on Florida. You ready to bounce over to the next team?
Yeah, let's bounce on over.